You're watching Mrs. K's Healthy Eating channel, and we're here to help you to eat well and get cooking. Hi, right, now we're ready to make our vegan lemon loaf. First of all, what I like to do is I like to line my tins. Now, I've often seen children line tins at school where they take a square or round piece of paper and they just sort of crinkle it in with everything all crinkled and lumpy, and quite frankly that is no good at all, because when the cake comes out it's all uneven. So although it's a little bit of extra work, I find that you really need to cut your paper carefully. So I've cut 2 bases for my cake tins, and I've lined my tins with some margarine. If you were doing this for a vegan, you would obviously use, well, most margarines are plant-based anyway, but you could use a vegan spread. And so here I've got my 2 tins with the bases in, but you also need the sides. So I've actually cut my pieces I've cut long strips, and then I've just cut it diagonally because my tin is diagonal. And then you just simply place your paper into the tin, and it just means that your cake comes out nice and cleanly and you have a nice even cake. So I've been very pedantic here. I've cut out all my bits, and what I normally do is I buy a big roll of greaseproof paper, and I just fold it on top of each other and cut out a whole load of rounds. So I have a whole set of round cake tin for my round tins, liners, and so I don't have to cut every single time I bake, because it is a faff. So here we are, but I don't often bake in these square tins, so I haven't got some ready cut. I just cut as I need. Okie dokie, there we go. So my tins nicely lined with paper, and I can now set those aside. Right, okay. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to preheat our oven. So I'm going to go along to my oven, check my shelves. Probably will put my one shelf in the middle. I often batch bake, so I will bake on all the shelves. But today I'm just going to do the 2 loaves. And I could have done it in a one large cake tin, but I decided that I would make 2 smaller loaves. One for us and one either for the freezer or one to give away. Okay, so let's start with our recipe. So we're using our dairy-free milk today because it's fortified with vitamin B12, and that's what we're looking at today, is how we incorporate vitamin B12 into our diet. So it's this long life milk, so I'm just going to pull that open. Right, okay, so let's see. First of all, we're going to measure our milk, and we need 300 mils of milk. So 300 mils. You're going to need 2 jugs today. Don't forget, when we measure on a flat surface. So that's exactly 300 mils of milk. You could also double up on this recipe and bake 2 large tins at once, or even 4 little tins at once. I always like to batch bake because it uses up the same amount of electricity for making more. Okay, now into this milk we're going to put some lemon juice. Okay, now what we need is the zest of 2 lemons. Now I'm going to have to get rid of the zest, or get the zest off, before I cut the lemons to squeeze the juice. So we're going to use, now on your graters, there are various things to choose from, and I find that often people choose this really fine one. That is no good, because all that happens is that the lemon just gets clogged inside there instead of coming through nicely. So I always use the thin grater, and be careful. There's another thing I find children do all the time, and that is they grate and grate and grate and grate, and all the white pith is mixed in with the zest. All we want is the top layer. So it's very lightly done, literally like that, and all that zest is gone. We do not want the white pith at all because it has no flavour, and all we're interested in is flavour. So there we go, lightly zested. I don't like graters. I think they're quite dangerous. And if you've got one of those graters that's got a handle and then the grater that comes out of it, I actually prefer those. But because when you're holding a grater straight up, it is so easy to grate your thumbs. So please try and keep your thumb away from the grater because it is very easily grated. And it can be sore, and that's not really what you want on your grater. Okay, so here we are. Doesn't take long because you're literally grating the top of the zest, not the white. Okay, and when you buy lemons, don't buy, if possible, try and buy the roughest skins possible, not smooth ones, because the rougher, the easier it is to zest. Okay, so we've pretty well done that. I'm going to shake my grater, and there's probably loads left in here, yes. So I'm just going to scrape that out and put that down there. Right, so that's ready now for another stage in what we're making. So I'll put that to one side, and I'm just going to wipe my hands because they're now full of lemon. So we now need lemon juice. So I'm going to put this for the milk, melted margarine and mixed. Right, okay. So I'm just going to move that to one side. In fact, what we could do with that is put it into a little bowl. Put that into a little bowl so that there's a big enough surface. You see there's a lot of lemon zest from these 2 lemons. That is why this cake is so yummy, because it is such a strong lemon flavour. Okay, bridge hold. Now we only need 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, so I'm not thinking it's going to be more than 1 lemon. So there's my zester, and we're going to, quite useful if you don't have one of these, then I suggest you cut it in half and use a fork to try and squeeze out the lemons. Okay, so nice fresh lemon juice. You could, of course, use bottled lemon juice, but you need the lemon zest, so you may as well use. And once you've taken the zest off a lemon, it doesn't keep for very long, so you may as well use it as quickly as possible. So I've got my tablespoon. So 1 tablespoon of lemon juice into my milk. And this is to curdle the milk. And that's what we want. We want curdled milk. Now we're going to put the oil and the syrup together. So. This is not where you would use olive oil. Don't use a strong oil, either sunflower oil. I'm using rapeseed oil because rapeseed has got omega-3 and omega-6, so a very good oil. So we're adding those extra essential fatty acids into our cake as well. So this cake has got a lot more than just pleasure to it. Now we need that, and now we need 3 tablespoons of maple syrup. So in order to reduce the amount of sugar in the cake, we're going to use maple syrup. And also, this all helps to make the cake more moist. So 3 tablespoons. And also another thing I've noticed when I have been baking with children at school is that you ask for a tablespoon and they only fill the tablespoon halfway. You must fill up your tablespoon measure right to the very top. Otherwise, it's not a tablespoon. So I'm going to put that to one side. Maple syrup over there. And I've now got my, and it says set aside. Now, so I've got my 2 jugs set aside. Now I'm going to sieve. I'm going to put this all here. I'm now going to do my flour. We need 275 grams of flour. Now, you could use any flour, plain flour, but I'm going to use spelt flour because spelt flour, again, is a very old grain of flour. It has not been adapted at all for modern farming methods, and this flour is much easier on the digestive system, and so those with a slight gluten intolerance actually can have spelt flour. I've got a friend whose children are gluten intolerant, but they can have spelt flour. So spelt flour is a much easier thing. It does tend to be quite a heavy flour, so I don't like it for my Victoria sponges, but I would use it in a loaf. So we want 275. So let's do 275. There we go, 275. Right, 275 grams of plain spelt flour, and we need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. So 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Again, when you use baking powder can actually make your cake actually flop horrendously if you use too much. So don't do heaped spoons. If it calls for a spoon, make sure it's a flat spoon. 2 teaspoons of baking powder and 1 teaspoon of bicarb. Now, bicarb, as you may or may not know, has a very, very strong flavour. And so try and make sure that there's no lumps in the bicarb, and always sieve bicarb, because bicarb, if you get a mouthful of bicarb, it is disgusting. You will literally, it's a salty, soapy taste. It feels like you've eaten the soap. So we're now going to sieve this in our bowl, and this is such an easy recipe because you don't need any mixers, you don't need anything, you just need a bowl. And we're going to sieve that through. I always feel using white spelt flour makes me feel more healthy because I like to use wholemeal flour, but not all cakes are nice with wholemeal flour. So using spelt flour does make me feel better because it's a much healthier flour. Now, there's a good example. There's a whole lump here of bicarb. So we're going to press that through. That would not have been very nice for somebody's afternoon tea to have a lump of bicarb in their mouths. Okay, so we're going to, and the only reason we can use bicarb is because we've got strong flavours. That's why you don't use bicarb in, say, a Victoria sponge, because bicarb is a very, very fast-acting raising agent. It is, in fact, baking powder is made up of some bicarbonate of soda, but because it has such a strong taste, you can only use it in cakes where you're using lemon juice or another very strong flavour. And here we've got lemon juice in our milk, so we're all right with this. Okay, so, right, now pour the milk, melted margarine, sorry, not the oil, and the lemon zest. So, in fact, this recipe was originally a margarine recipe where you melted the margarine, but I've exchanged it and swapped it for oil. I've done the experiment, and I have found that you can use oil just as effectively as margarine, and because oil is an unsaturated fat and much healthier, I've now changed to using oil. So I don't have to melt anything. Right, so pour over the milk, right into the middle. Right, and you can see some of the milk has actually curdled at the bottom of this. Pour in your milk and your maple syrup all at once, and the lemon zest. There we go. Now, one thing we haven't done is put in our sugar. So we've still got 150 grams of sugar. So it's less sugar than, for example, a Victoria sponge would be. So let's, when you make this, make sure you put your sugar in perhaps before you put your liquids in, but it's okay, it's fine. Here we go. Mix it all in. Use a whisk, much better than a spoon, because it gets out all the lumps. And that's it. That's all that this recipe entails. Such an easy recipe. Mix it in all thoroughly. Because you've sieved your flour, you've got no lumps of flour. There will be little lumps in here because it's full of lemon zest. Just mixing it so that the sugar dissolves nicely in it, because there has been no creaming. It almost looks like a batter. It's lovely and soft, and that's what this cake is meant to look like. Right, I think that's done now. All well mixed in. I'm going to get my 2 tins, and I'm going to pour in and try and do it evenly. So I'll try that first. I do sometimes weigh the mixture on my scale so that I can have 2 even-sized tins. So let's have a look at that. I'm going to do what I normally do, and that is to weigh the tins so that it does look like one's got more than the other. Right, okay, done. So now I'm just going to go over to my oven, pop them in the oven, and this will take about 40 minutes. So I will see you in 40 minutes. There we go, and I'm going to set the timer. In fact, I'll use Alexa. Alexa, set the timer for 40 minutes.
How long?
40 minutes.
40 minutes. Starting now.
There we go. Right, I'll see you when the cakes are done. Hi everyone. Right, we're back now. The cakes are done. They took exactly 40 minutes. As soon as my alarm went, I checked them and they were beautifully done. So I've let them cool down so that we can do the icing together. What I've done is I've taken one and I've wrapped it in some cling film, ready to go in the freezer, so that I've always got one spare, and I'm going to ice the other one. Okay, they do come out a lot bigger if you use the bigger tin, but this will be great for our afternoon tea today. So we're going to take 200 grams, I've measured out 200 grams of icing sugar. Now I'm not using normal icing sugar, I'm using natural unrefined cane sugar. So it is cane sugar, it's not the best sugar at all, but it is at least unrefined, which makes it that bit better than normal icing sugar. The only drawback with this is that it's off-white. So you can see in my dish here, you probably look at it and think, oh, it is white, but it's not as white as white normal icing sugar. So the colour of the icing is slightly off-white. On a lemon cake, you may find that off-putting. So I would totally understand if you wanted to use white icing sugar, but I'm going to use the unrefined. And we need a tablespoon. Oh, in fact, I haven't, because I'm not icing both cakes, I've used slightly less icing sugar. And I'm going to put in some fresh lemon juice. This was the lemon juice left over from the cake. So just mix in the lemon juice with the icing sugar with a spoon, and always start with using less liquid rather than more, because with icing sugar we want to make a nice paste. Right, that is now too stiff. We don't want anything as stiff as that, so I could just about pick it up. So I'm going to now drizzle tiny bits of lemon juice in, because I don't want to ruin it by making it too runny, because if it's too runny, then it just runs off the cake. As you can see the colour. It is quite a dark colour. You would be quite amazed that it turns out to be this colour from that colour icing sugar. Right, now is this what we want? I think so. This will make a nice pouring consistency over our cake. And here we are. I normally just do it. And that's literally how you make glacé icing. You can either use lemon juice or water. But because we've got a lemon cake, we want to have a nice flavour of lemon. Right, and you just gently, that's perfect consistency, because you want it to drizzle a little bit down the cake. So we are going to spread it evenly on the surface. And there we have it. And it's just mostly staying on. Some of it might drizzle down. And there we have our cake ready for afternoon tea. So normally, before cutting it, I would let the icing set. But because I want to show you what it looks like inside, I'm going to cut it. So we're going to cut a piece of lemon cake, and look at that lovely soft cake inside. Beautiful texture, light and fluffy. So that is going to be our treat for tea time this afternoon. Try the cake, give it a go, and let's hope it's something that you'll enjoy and want to make again. It's a great recipe if you're vegan, but it's a great recipe too to make a cake without eggs if you haven't got any eggs. So I'll see you again soon. Take care.